The Stalker in the News. The first note appeared on a Tuesday. I found it tucked under my windshield wiper in the parking garage beneath the Chronicle building. A small white envelope with my name written in precise, old-fashioned cursive. No return address, no stamp. Inside, a single sentence. "You look tired lately, Laura. You should sleep more." I crumpled it and tossed it in my bag. 10 years as an investigative journalist in Portland meant I'd accumulated my share of weird fans and angry sources. Occupational hazard. I forgot about it by the time I reached my desk. The second note came 3 days later. This time, it was waiting in my mailbox at home. "The blue dress suits you better than the gray one. You should wear it more often." My stomach dropped. The blue dress hung in my closet. I'd worn the gray one to work that morning, but I'd deliberated between the two while getting dressed. In my bedroom, with the curtains closed. I called the police that afternoon. Officer Martinez took my statement with professional sympathy, but I could see the resignation in her eyes. No threats, no explicit danger, just creepy notes. They'd increase patrols in my neighborhood, she said. Document everything. Install better locks. I did all of that, and still, the messages came. An email to my work account. "Your mother called you 3 times yesterday. You should call her back. She worries." She had called 3 times. I hadn't told anyone that. A note left on my car at the grocery store. "The wine you bought, the Pinot Noir from 2019, that was a good vintage. Your father would have approved." My father had been dead for 8 years. He'd loved that specific wine. How could anyone know that? The messages grew more intimate, more invasive. They knew about my morning running route, the coffee shop where I worked on weekends, the Chinese takeout place I ordered from every Thursday. But worse than that, they knew about my past. "Remember the night you and Jessica broke into the old Miller house? You were 15. You never told anyone about what you found in the basement." I hadn't thought about that night in 20 years. Jessica and I had been stupid teenagers, daring each other to explore the abandoned house at the edge of town. We'd found old newspapers, moldy furniture, and a locked room we couldn't open. We'd run home, spooked but unharmed, and never spoke of it again. Jessica had moved to California a decade ago. We barely kept in touch. No one else knew about that night. I started keeping a file. Every note, every email, every detail. I interviewed security experts, studied stalking patterns, reached out to former sources in law enforcement. Nothing helped. Whoever this was, they were meticulous. Untraceable. Then came the package. It arrived at my apartment on a Saturday morning, a manila envelope with no return address, hand-delivered according to my building's doorman. Inside were photocopies of old newspaper clippings, yellowed with age. The first was from 1987. "Journalist vanishes after corruption expose." A reporter named Laura Chen had been investigating police corruption in Seattle. He disappeared without a trace 2 weeks before his story was set to publish. The second clipping, from 1993. Whistleblower missing after Senate testimony. A woman named Patricia Voss, a government accountant who'd uncovered embezzlement, had vanished from her home. Her car was found abandoned near the border. She was never seen again. More clippings followed. Different cities, different decades, but the same pattern. Journalists, investigators, whistleblowers, all working on stories that threatened powerful people. All missing. 12 cases in total, spanning 40 years. At the bottom of the stack was a Post-it note in that same precise handwriting. "You're number 13, Laura, unless you stop asking questions." My hands shook as I spread the clippings across my coffee table. I'd been working on a story for the past 6 months, a deep dive into real estate development contracts in Portland, specifically how certain properties were being seized through eminent domain and sold to connected developers at a fraction of their value. It was corruption, plain and simple, involving city officials and a network of shell companies. I'd thought it was just local graft. Now I wasn't so sure. I pulled up my research files and started cross-referencing. Michael Chen in 1987 had been investigating police involvement in land acquisition schemes. Patricia Voss had discovered irregularities in federal housing grants. Another victim, Thomas Brennan from 2001, had been exposing fraud in urban renewal projects. They'd all been chasing different threads of the same web. And now I was pulling at it too. I didn't sleep that night. Instead, I compiled everything: my story, my research, the clippings, the stalker's messages, and uploaded it all to an encrypted cloud server with instructions to automatically release it to 3 major news outlets if I didn't check in every 48 hours. Dead man's switch. Then I called Martinez and told her everything. She listened without interrupting, and when I finished, she was quiet for a long moment. "You need to leave town," she finally said. "Now, tonight." "I'm not running, Laura. I've spent 6 months on this story. If I disappear, they win. If I go public, at least people will know." Going public makes you a bigger target. Staying silent makes me a victim. The next morning, I walked into the Chronicle building and handed my editor a flash drive. On it was everything: the corruption story, the stalking, the missing persons, all of it woven together. A conspiracy that had operated in shadows for decades, silencing anyone who got close. "Run it," I told him. "Front page, tomorrow." He stared at me. "Laura, if this is true, it's true. And they know I know, which means my only protection now is making sure everyone else knows, too." The story broke on a Wednesday morning. By noon, it had gone viral. By evening, federal investigators were issuing subpoenas. By midnight, 3 city officials had resigned, and 2 developers were under arrest. And the messages stopped. No more notes, no more emails. Whoever had been watching me had retreated into the darkness they'd come from. But I knew they were still out there. A network that had operated for 40 years wouldn't crumble from one story. They'd regroup. They'd find new methods, new shadows to hide in. I kept the dead man's switch active. I varied my routines. I never stayed in one place too long. And I kept digging. Because now I understood something fundamental. The stalker hadn't been trying to scare me into silence. They'd been trying to scare me into running, into disappearing like the others. But by staying, by going public, by refusing to become number 13, I'd done something none of the other victims had managed to do. I'd turned on the lights. 3 months later, I received one final message, an email from an untraceable account, sent at 3:47 a.m. "You were lucky, Laura, but luck runs out. We'll be watching. We're always watching. And next time, you won't see us coming." I printed the email and added it to my file. Then I opened a new document and started writing my follow-up story, the one about the threats, the intimidation, the network that was still out there. Because they were right about one thing: they would always be watching. But now, so was everyone else. And in the light, shadows have nowhere to hide. I hit save and took a sip of coffee. Outside my window, the city was waking up. Cars honked. People rushed to work. Normal life continued, oblivious to the darkness that lurked in its margins. But I wasn't oblivious anymore. and I wasn't afraid. I was a journalist, and I had a story to tell. The phone on my desk rang. Unknown number. I let it ring once, twice, 3 times. Then I picked it up. Laura Chen speaking. Silence on the other end, just breathing. Then a click. I smiled and added the call to my log. They wanted me to be scared. They wanted me to run. Instead, I opened my laptop and kept writing. Because the best revenge against those who operate in darkness isn't running. It's bringing a spotlight. And I was just getting started.